So it's not the NFL draft, but there is certainly excitement about finding out the order of when the New Orleans Saints will play their 2024 opponents. Should there be? Does it really matter when they play the Atlanta Falcons or Philadelphia Eagles in the Dome? What about the trip out west to the Chargers? And does anyone care when the Saints will travel to Lambeau Field and play the Green Bay Packers? Well, duh. When is the bye week? How many prime times will the Saints get? All these things we will talk about with Inside New Orleans host Eric Asher on this Wednesday morning, and we'll ask Eric his opinion on Spencer Rattler, which I am guessing is a little different than what I've been saying for the past couple of weeks. All that and more coming up next on the Dattitude podcast.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where you at, New Orleans? And hello to my friends elsewhere, everywhere, out there who have been glued to social media trying to see if they can get the scoop before tonight's schedule release. We already have some games in place. We're going to share that in just a moment. Also, Gabe is going to monitor the leaks in the background. Let me know while we're on the air, if anything's breaking. We have had some this morning again coming up all throughout this show for the next 40 to 50 minutes. We hope you can stick around. We love you. You're a part of the Dattitude family. You know that already. Before we tell you what we know so far, we have to let you know that Dattitude episode number 239 is presented to you by Evangeline Securities for this Wednesday, May 15th, 2024. I am your host, Jim Derry. And whether you're watching on one of our NOLA.com social media channels or listening to the podcast, as always, I thank you for being a part of this show. You can be a part of this show this morning by typing in your comments, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're watching on X, whether you're watching on Facebook. We've had tremendous Facebook watchers. The amount of Facebook watchers we've had the past couple shows is through the roof. We thank you for watching, whether you're watching live later on. It doesn't make a difference. If you're listening after the fact on any number of places, including wherever you get your podcasts on Apple, Google, Spotify, you can send me a comment via email to jderry@theadvocate.com. Also, a reminder, if you haven't already done so, especially now, our growing Dattitude YouTube page, make sure you subscribe. Click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live. Look, I was all prepared to tell you this morning that we don't know a whole lot about the schedule. Usually leaks are rolling in. I mean, I kind of assumed the other day that we're going to have at least half the schedule, maybe more by now. But as of 2 hours ago, we had nothing until about the last hour and a half. I don't want to say hell's breaking loose, but it kind of is. A lot of schedule leaks this morning. We know some of the Saints' schedule so far, according to these leaks. And I want to give a shout out to @Nerding on NFL on X. I've been following this guy, and I tell you, he's been spot on. Not just this year. I wouldn't report his stuff here on the show if he hadn't been accurate in the past. Been very accurate. And so we are prepared to talk about that. Again, Eric Asher, host of Inside New Orleans, coming up in just a minute. He's in the green room ready to go. The Saints schedule in full, the official schedule set for release tonight. I believe, can't remember whether it's 6 or 7 o'clock. It is coming out tonight for sure. So besides what you see on the show, officially the entire thing will come out. Which primetime games will the Saints get? Right now we know of one. Tell you about that one in a minute. Also, Spencer Rattler. Now, we've talked about Spencer a lot on this show. It's been mostly me. I asked Sean Fazan on Friday what he thought. He gave a different opinion. Most people have a different opinion than what I have on Spencer Rattler. That's okay. Most of you have a different opinion on Spencer Rattler than what I have. That's okay. All that matters is what happens in the end, right? What is going to happen throughout training camp. He had a great mini camp. It was 11-12. How much do you put on that? We're going to talk about that with Eric in a little bit. And then my extra point this afternoon. Oh, this afternoon. Maybe it'll be this afternoon by the time we finish. This morning here is about an anniversary of sorts. Sports gambling. 6 years ago today, the Supreme Court struck down a ruling that outlawed sports gambling in the United States, left it up to the states to decide. And now most states have allowed sports gambling, whether in person. Most people do it on their phones. That is our extra point this morning. We'll talk about that in a little bit. All kinds of things to talk about. So far, we hear the Saints will open in the Dome against Carolina. Hey, got one right. That one, we talked about our ideal schedule. And this is what we know so far. So right now we know Carolina at home. They're going to be on the road in week 2, and they're going to host Philadelphia. That's one of the things we talked about. We will talk about with Eric. Is that a big deal? Man, you hope if you're going on the road, it's somewhere manageable, and we know it won't be at the Giants. So I don't know. We're going to get into that because the Giants are on the road in week 14. It'll be cold. It'll be cold in the Big Apple week 14. What is that? The beginning December. I think that's the second week of December. And they will finish the season at Tampa Bay. How about Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos on a Thursday night football, week 7? I thought, Gabe said he didn't think. I thought we would the Saints would be on a Monday night playing them, but they'll have back-to-back home games as they play Tampa in week 6. Comments this so far. Hey there, Jerry. How you doing? Mike, what's up from St. Landry Parish? How you doing there, bud? My friend Sav's with us. Second easiest schedule in the league. That is misleading, my friend. I'm going to talk about that with Eric in just a minute because not necessarily. It's second easiest if you go by opponent's schedule, opponent's records by last year. But we've been doing a formula here on this show. We did it last year. We're going to talk about that maybe later on. Jerry says the NFL schedule officially released at 7 o'clock this evening. And Gabe's telling me the same thing. Okay, you know what? I'm about to bring on Eric because I had some more to say this morning, but he is ready to go. Before Eric comes on, though, I do want to tell you, and you know what? Let me put this slide back up because my friend's waiting. So I want you to know that he's coming on. Many of you are interested about what we've been talking about, our friends at Evangeline Securities, and what they can potentially do for you or maybe someone close to you. The managing directors, Nick Braden and Ron Hemelt, founded the company in 2014 to help those in and around southern Louisiana who are beginning to think about selling their small to mid-sized business. We all know many companies around here were founded years ago by dads, grandpas, moms, grandmas. Now the kids and the kids are running the show. And they don't know if that's really what they want to do with the rest of their lives. Maybe they're just ready to retire, even if it's a few years earlier than maybe you thought a decade or so ago. Can you do it? Can you afford to do it? Will your company allow you to live the rest of your life comfortably? Well, maybe you thought about selling and don't know how, or even know what the company is worth. That's where Nick and Ron at Evangeline come in. They are fully licensed, registered brokers who grew up in New Orleans, graduated from some of the finest business schools in the country, and have spent many years in the Big Apple business world before coming back home. They can help you figure out everything you want to know, and they don't make a dime until you do. More on them before the extra point, so stick around. In the meantime, you can check them out at www.evangelinesecurities.com. Okay, let's bring in my friend Eric Asher. And Eric, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing well. All hell is kind of breaking loose as we're going on. All these schedule leaks. So we'll probably have a few as we go on here at the show this morning. Gabe Henderson in the background, checking it out, following our friends on Twitter and see what they can find out. But these are the opponents home and away. Now, again, we've leaked some of them. We'll show a slide in a minute that shows you the opponents in the order that we know. But I thought it was important to show all the teams that they will play. We don't know where all they will be yet. We will know for sure either later this afternoon or at 7 o'clock when the official schedule is released. But one thing I think is interesting, Eric, is we know that They're going to open at home against Carolina. They're going to play Philadelphia at home in week 3. They're going to play Tampa at home in week 6. They're going to play Denver at home in week 7. That's a very heavy, at least early home schedule.
Mm-hmm. No, it is. It is. And again, look, when you look at the schedule, the play plays out, it's always interesting to see where the NFC South teams are going to be. Again, obviously, when you're looking at home schedule, you want to be in a situation where, you'd like to have, your bye week maybe toward the middle of the season if you can. And you'd like to try to start at home and maybe hopefully finish at home as well.
Well, to that end, we know that, and I'll show what we know in a little bit, but we know that they're going to finish on the road at Tampa Bay. So they will open at home and finish on the road and have 9 games total in the Dome. There are no international games for the Saints. We know that. So they will play 9 games in the Dome, unlike 2022 when one of their home games was sent to London. So that's a good thing. Jerry's says, if I can click on this button, there we go. Welcome, Eric. Jerry's saying hello to you.
Thank you, Jerry.
And to show you how different fans can think, Morgan says she can't wait for September, while Andre says 5-12 this season, easy, even with an easier schedule. So, I've run the gamut. I had one commenter last week who said the Saints were going to go 4-13, and then about 2 minutes later, I had one that said they were going 17-0 and going to the Super Bowl. The likelihood is it's somewhere in between. Right. And my particular opinion is, and I'd like to get yours, is that it does matter what the schedule is. I think the Saints, maybe more than any time in the recent history, needs to have an easier schedule early, because I think this new group, this new offensive unit, well, at least new offensive coaching staff, they need to get some cohesiveness, and they need to play some of these easier teams early. And I think if you open up the season and you're playing this tough schedule early, it can affect you. This team is not going to be able to jump out the gate 2-5. I think they need to be 6-3 or something like that and get some momentum going in the back half of the season. I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Well, first of all, we saw what happened last year, right? Again, we heard Derek Carr talking about continuity with receivers. He knew he had the playbook down. And of course, again, by the time that we got to the middle of the season, we saw that wasn't exactly the case. You're looking at a brand new system that's being installed now. The good news is, again, Derek Carr is at the facility. He's, again, learning the system. But again, not everyone is there. So I agree with you. Anytime you're in a situation where you're starting a new system, new offensive system, offensive line, obviously receivers, quarterback being on the same page. This is supposed to be more of a running team this year. Again, what's the health of your running backs, etc. I would agree with you. Everyone would love to have, again, a schedule where you start the season out with maybe, again, teams that are not as tough as maybe, again, you might get toward the middle of the end of the season.
And already, again, and I'll show this I'm going to kind of jump back and forth between slides if you're watching live. If you're listening to the pod, we thank you for listening to the pod. I know you can't get the whole gist of what we're doing because you can't see these slides, but we'll try to talk about it in depth as much as we can. And what we know is, so far, is Carolina at home. Hey, I got one right. I was talking about my ideal schedule the past week and a half, and I had Carolina at home in week 1. Got that. But what we didn't get, they're going to go on the road in week 2 because they're going to play Philadelphia at home in week 3. If that week 2 game is somebody like Dallas or Kansas City or even Green Bay, that's quite a heck of a start. And that, so you really, to me, Eric, need someone, and you look at their road candidates, maybe a Chargers. Would you go away to Atlanta that early? I don't know, but man, it's already, to me, that's going to be a tough thing going on the road and playing potentially a Dallas or a Kansas City or a Green Bay.
Right. Well, and of course, look, you had mentioned this a little bit earlier about, going to the Giants at week 14. You got a possibility of, again, Kansas City, Green Bay, and the Giants being all cold weather games. So that's another part of this as well. You'd like to get those guys earlier in the schedule. You're not with the Giants. That's going to be in December. That's a possible cold weather game. Most of the games are indoors though this year, which is again good. Obviously again 9 at home now with the Saints having 9 home games and 3 on the road in a dome stadium. 2 in Atlanta, 1 in Los Angeles. Yeah,
no question about that. As you see the full opponents list of schedule now, one thing I found interesting. And my friend Garland Gillen has been talking about this, but the Saints schedule, and we've been saying for months, really, there's no way it's going to be as easy as it was last year. And it's kind of misleading a little bit when you talk about the Saints opposition and what their winning percentage was last year, something like 456 or something like that. And in the grand scheme of things, they have the 31st quote unquote easiest schedule after having the 32nd easiest schedule, the easiest schedule in the NFL last year, which they went 9-8. We know what they did. But that's so misleading, Eric, because, and I do this every year, I have a formula that I put together based off of what Vegas thinks. To me, that's more important than what they're winning, because Vegas has a good feel of what they're going to do this coming year. Last year, the Saints had the easiest schedule, both by winning percentage and by this formula. It's not going to be that way this year. I've already started plugging them in. Haven't done all of them yet. But when you talk about going to Dallas, and again, I'm going to mention it again, at Dallas, at Kansas City, at Green Bay, doesn't matter when you play them, at Atlanta, who's going to be obviously a lot better, and home for the Rams, home for Cleveland, home for Philadelphia, home for Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. We don't know how good they're going to be. There's no question that this schedule is going to be much tougher than last year's.
Well, and look, I've never bought into that, Jim. That again, what your schedule is way before the season starts. So many things can happen. First of all, we've seen so many teams go from last to first. Losing a quarterback changes the entire scenario of your season.
Agreed.
We don't know teams that may have been a little bit on the come last year. Are they ready to take the next step? Teams that maybe getting a little bit older that may take a step back. So I've never bought into this. We're going to do a formula. I'm going to say again, this particular team has the easiest schedule because we don't know what happens if they kick the ball off in September.
Rocky says not overly concerned with Green Bay rather early and not week 14, 17. I couldn't agree more with that. I don't want to play Green Bay, Philly back to back, but I would rather play Green Bay in week 2 than play them at Lambeau in week 16 or 17 when it's the turf is hard as a rock and it's 10 degrees.
Agreed. There's only 3 possible cold weather games, and you already know that again you're getting one with the Giants late. So again, you'd rather not be in Kansas City or Green Bay again in December. I
will say this though, and Sean Fazan brought this up on Friday. The Saints' best game 2 years ago, maybe all season, home or away, was at Cleveland, and it was the coldest game the Saints ever played. It was 6 degrees. The turf was ice, and I think the wind was blowing about 25 miles an hour. So who knows?
Every blind squirrel finds a nut.
That's true. I think you and I both kind of have the same sense of skepticism, I guess is the right word.
You just got to prove it to me at this point. You haven't been in the playoffs since 2020. Okay. Obviously you've invested a lot in Derek Carr. Derek Carr's your guy. There's a lot of talk about, again, the locker room and the culture. I thought the culture was fine, but now the culture obviously isn't at this point. You've made some additions. You got to beef up that offensive line. Have you done enough? You got a lot of guys on 1-year deals at this point. And then, of course, health is a huge thing for every team in the NFL. But again, especially the Saints, when you look at, again, some of the areas of this team where it's a little bit thin.
Eric Asher of Inside New Orleans here on the Dattitude podcast on this Wednesday morning, presented by Evangeline Securities. Little programming note. We normally go Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We will do our Friday show is going to be tomorrow morning. We're actually going to come on Thursday morning with Rod Walker of our own people here at The Advocate, and we're going to talk about the official schedule release tomorrow morning. Eric, before we go further, why don't you tell people about what's going on? You've got your Inside New Orleans show every afternoon from 4 to 6 on the newly branded 106.1 The Ticket, and you've got your Inside New Orleans sports show that comes out every week.
Yep, on the radio, 106.1 The Ticket. Again, just rebranded that. Fox Sports affiliate. We've got Dan Patrick, Doug Gottlieb, who's going to be doing coaching basketball and doing radio. Good luck with that one. Obviously, again, Ken Trahan with, Crest City Sports and what he does. And, of course, myself, 4 to 6. Inside New Orleans Sports on WLE TV and Pelican Sports Television. We've actually recorded some shows over the next month now because we're moving our studios from Howard Avenue back to Metairie.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, this week, again, two ex-colleagues of yours, Brian Ellie Walsh and Dave Lagarde will be on our program this week.
Wow. I've got to get Walshy on the show.
Yeah, they both had a lot to say. Believe me, it was a really, really great hour with both those guys.
I haven't talked to Walshy in a while. One of my favorite people on this planet.
Yes.
I mentioned him on the show within the past month for sure. Brian Alley Walsh was, I know I'm biased about my own people, but Brian Alley Walsh to me was the best NFL newspaper reporter in the business when he was doing it back in the 90s and early 2000s. I love him.
Well, what I love about those two guys, again, they always called it like they saw it. Again, they never let anyone intimidate them in terms of, again, teams, coaches, etc. And again, they laid it on the line. That again, they had a lot of pushback, especially from the Saints, right? But again, you knew when you read their column or you read what they were writing, they were going to tell you exactly how they felt, and they were going to give you accurate information.
I'm not chastising any of my colleagues that are doing this now, but the biggest difference between sports beat writers today and sports beat writers of 15, 20 years ago and before is the older sports beat writers didn't care if they pissed off the teams they were covering. They reported it the way that they saw it and the way that they understood it. Today, it's like, I think too many people dance around. And then, that's why the show, it's like, look, I can say what I want because I don't have to fear repercussions. I mean, it bothers me a little bit that I don't think people go far enough.
It's going in that direction. You're not wrong. Okay. You're not wrong. And I'm not talking bad about anyone that, again, is covering the team on a daily basis.
I'm not.
That is tough. But when the professional teams in your city are holding credentials over your head on what you say or don't say, what you write or don't write, okay, that's an issue. And again, as a talk show host, as someone that, again, that's in the newspaper business, again, digital, doesn't matter. You got to call it like you see it.
It's sort of like politics, but we don't talk politics on this show. But
I don't do politics anymore.
it's really not much difference in the world of politics either. I think that people are too scared to piss people off, and we're not at Dattitude.
How can you be in this business and not tell the truth, or at least call it like you see it, right?
You don't have to put sugar on everything, Aaron. No, you just don't. No. I mean,
don't do it on my shows. Never will. Never had. Never will.
Look, and I don't care if, I said this before, when we're going to talk about Spencer Rattler in a minute. I don't care if someone has differing opinions to what I have, no matter what it is. I mean, the commenters, please, if you think I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. I'll show it on the screen. I don't have any problems with that. But, let's just tell it like it is, or at least the way we think it is.
When you do what we do, again, there's a record, okay? There's a record of what has been said. Can't run away from it.
Nope, no doubt about it. All right. Back to these opponents that I think is interesting. What maybe 2 or 3 opponents do you think that are on this schedule that are going to be much tougher than anyone's giving them credit for next year? And because I have a couple, right. First of all, the Chargers maybe are getting a little bit too much hype about Jim Harbaugh, but they can't be worse than they were. And I think that they're going to take I think Brandon Staley is one of the worst coaches that has been in the NFL over the past few years. I'm not a Jim Harbaugh fan by any means. Anyone who watches the show on a regular basis knows that. But I think he's going to bring a toughness to this team and help Justin Herbert. So that's one of my teams that I think is kind of laying in the weeds, that is going to be a lot tougher than maybe it would have been last year.
Well, I agree with you, and that would have been one I would have chosen because, again, they're a good team. They've got really good players, again, and having Harbaugh coming in, I think will ignite that team as well. It really starts with the quarterback. Again, when you start looking at these teams, how good the quarterback look.
Right.
And Herbert's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and I think again he will excel under Harbaugh.
That is one of the biggest differences about this schedule as compared to last year's schedule. When you looked at last year's schedule, we were saying, I think about this time last year, who was the best quarterback that was on the Saints schedule last year? Trevor Lawrence. I mean, it was pretty bad when you went up and down the list, and it's not that way this year. You can go through it. I mean, some of them we don't know, but I mean, you could say whatever you want about Deshaun Watson, but he's still a pretty damn good quarterback in my opinion. Jalen Hurts, outstanding quarterback. We don't know what Jaden Daniels is going to be. Kirk Cousins twice. Dak, you can argue about that. Jordan Love, they played him last year, choked in the fourth quarter, and then of course the great Patrick Mahomes, who may end up being the best of all time. That's one of the things to me that makes this schedule much different than last year.
It is much different, but again, even last year they couldn't overcome all the bad quarterbacks they were facing on a week in, week out basis. So, I mean, and now again, you don't get a reprieve with the quarterbacks, and we know it starts with the quarterbacks. So, It'll be interesting to see what happens there. But look, we talked about it as we started the show. We have no idea what's going to happen with these teams, how they're going to look again when the Saints face them. We could talk about it on paper at this point. But again, much like last year, you look at last year, again, all the quarterbacks, that's one of the reasons why you thought the Saints had a really good chance of winning the division, maybe going to the playoffs, etc. And it didn't work out that way. Be interesting to see, again, the changes on defense that they're going to make, because there are some mobile quarterbacks on this schedule, as you mentioned. And again, they had their issues with mobile quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, for one.
I mean, and what do you think about Jaden Daniels? What do you think he's going to be able to do?
Well, I mean, again, I think it's going to be rough for any rookie quarterback coming in. But the one thing he's got going for him is his athleticism. Now, to me, again, can he stay healthy? That to me is always going to be the question with him going, because of his frame. But again, he is a guy that's got a gear that I have not seen from most quarterbacks. He's accurate. You saw how he grew from his junior to senior year at LSU in terms of, again, being able to throw the ball over the middle. I think it's exciting for him to be, again, his opportunity in Washington.
No doubt about it. Breaking news here, thanks to Gabe Henderson, according to the X Machine. Saints at Green Bay in Week 16. Exactly what we were talking about. Didn't want. That is Christmas week. The Saints will spend the Sunday before Christmas in the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field, something they haven't done in they have not been to Green Bay towards the end of the season in a long time. That almost certainly means the Saints will be at home in Week 17. But man, that is rough, Eric.
That's the scenario you did not want. You did not want to be playing cold weather. The teams that, again, have a possibility of cold weather, toward the end of the season. And right now you got the Giants in Green Bay, at 14 and now 16. So
yeah, I mean, look, you got to do whatever. You got to play everybody, and right. I get that. But again, the premise, going back to people who weren't listening at the beginning of the show, is I think you and I have both agreed that it's much better for the Saints to play an easier schedule early to get the cohesiveness, but you also don't want to play at Green Bay in Week 16. And what Rocky said earlier, not overly concerned about Green Bay early, rather early in that Week 14. Well, to 17. There it is. I mean, there it is. Jerry says in the snow. Even if it's not snowing, it's going to be damn cold. So that's what we got. So we know 3 of the road games. We also know they will be on the road in Week 2 and Week 8 for sure, because Week 8 is Swifty. God help us all. Swifty is going to be taking over the city of New Orleans in Week 8. So we know they went on the road. Assuming they go on the road in Week 4 and 5, which is a possibility. I mean, you're talking about a nice little home stretch at some point as well.
Yes.
I don't know when the bye week is, by the way.
Well, that's one of the keys, especially now if you're playing, again, these cold weather games toward the end of the season. You'd love to have your bye week around the middle of the season there. Again, especially long training camp, first part of the season, get a chance to be able to get a little bit of a respite and maybe kind of heal up for the back end of the season. But there's no guarantees there. And then again, the other question is, how many nationally televised games will they have? And look, I said this yesterday on the radio show. The Saints lack star power. Okay, back in again when Breeze and Peyton were here, again they were on national TV constantly because of the star power. What's the star power the Saints have now? Well, now it's Allen and Carr. It's so again. I know you're going to ask me about Denver in a little while, but again, to me, that was the only one I really thought that they had a chance to being on national TV. Now, they'll probably have another one somewhere, maybe Atlanta, New Orleans, which is always, again, you throw the records out. That's always going to be a good game. But I wonder how many games they will actually have on national TV in this upcoming season.
That's a very good question. Some more breaking news. The Falcons will play at the Commanders in Week 17, and we already know they're playing home against Carolina in Week 1, so that means that the Saints will be playing at home against a non-divisional foe in Week 17. All right, so we're getting it better. Would it be better if they played on Sunday Night Football? I mean, I don't think they're going to have any Sunday Night Football games. Look, Jeff Duncan wrote a column about this a few days ago, and he talked to someone on the inside who said that the Saints still have that brand. I mean, I hear what you're saying about star power, and I agree with you. Which is why I think it's going to be 3. And like last year, they had 3, but 2 of them on a Thursday. Right. So I do think they will at least have a Monday night game. I don't think they'll have a Sunday night game because that's kind of like what Monday Night Football used to be back when you and I were growing up.
Right.
When it was a big deal to be on Monday Night Football. So they'll have to be good and have something flex later on. But I think they're still looking again at either a Thursday and 2 Mondays or 2 Thursdays again and a Monday. But I think 3 is probably the max.
Yeah. And that will be based on, again, 9-8, haven't been in the playoffs since 2020. That would be, for the Saints, that would be a good three nationally televised games would be about as much as you can ask for.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And look, when you talk about bye weeks, you don't want it to be too early. And we don't know when the Saints bye week will be yet, as we record right now, 11:31 in the morning on a Wednesday. But I will say this: look, Saints had a good bye week last year. It was like in the middle of the season, and you can always hope it's 9, 10, or 11. Actually, maybe it was a little later. I know it was late 2 years ago, but Philadelphia has a bye week in week 5. It would not surprise me with the way this schedule is kind of looking right now if they made it as early as week 5. You don't want it that early, but I mean, man, that makes things even more brutal if that were to happen.
It definitely does. Again, look, the further back you can get the bye week, the better for the team, especially, again, a team like New Orleans, where, look, I still think we don't know a lot about this team, what this team's going to look like. New offensive system. Again, I don't know if Dennis Allen's on the hot seat, because, again, I'm not sure they want to move on with Dennis Allen here.
Come on, man.
Okay.
He's
really
on the hot seat.
Oh, come on, man. I don't know. I mean,
look, I'm as critical as anybody. You know it.
Right.
But he's on the hot seat. If they don't, I'm not saying they need to win the division for him to keep his job, but I think if they go 8-9 or 2 games back and do worse than that, 8-9 to me is the floor. If they're any worse, if they're 8-9 or worse, if they're 8-9, he's in trouble. If they're worse than 8-9, he's gone. That's just my opinion. Even with this, they will not. You just simply can't go another season. If they go worse than 8-9, they simply can't. That's my opinion.
Well,
okay. By the way, go ahead, Aaron.
I was going to say, look who's in charge over there right now. I mean, so again, and Loomis has a lot invested in Allen at this point. Okay, that's his choice. That's his head coach. I would have honestly, even with a 9-8 record last year, I would have made the move.
Yeah. No, I but it's tough. I understand why they decided to keep him.
Why?
But to me, the way that it ended is what bothered me more than anything.
Right.
Again, you end like that and you apologize. That's what pissed me off more than anything.
But every New Orleanian.
But you and I both know that this team is loyal to a fault.
Yes, they are. And again, that's the reason why he came back again. And that's why, again, if unless things really go off the rails, okay, where season ticket holders are saying, forget it, I'm out. Because look, a lot of season ticket holders did that this year as well. I mean, how many times do you see the Saints putting out something and saying, "Hey, we've got a waiting list here. Jump on the waiting list. We got a chance for you to jump on and get your tickets this year." So, I'll be interested to see what happens. I agree with you. They are, they stay dedicated to their coaches almost to a fault. I still contend that Sean Payton would never have been fired. The only way he was leaving was on his own. So again, with Dennis Allen, I think they give him as much rope as they can, because that was their choice, and they're going to have to live with it.
Well, we saw that. We saw that they stuck with Sean Payton. People forget sometimes that he went 3-9. 7-9, 3 straight years. So breaking schedule news here in the day. We told you we would have some. We have some more. Here's a couple more for you. Just what we said we don't want to happen. This is not good. I'm telling you, this is not good. If you're a Saints fan, this is really bad. At Dallas in week 2, at Kansas City on Monday Night Football in week 5. So in the course of 3 weeks, we don't know who the week 4 opponent is going to be yet. You're talking about playing Dallas on the road, Philadelphia, and at Kansas City, Tampa Bay, who won the division. 4 out of 5 weeks. If that week 4 game is a brutal, if you stick the Rams in there, or if you stick, I don't know, Atlanta in there, that is brutal. That is I hate that. I'm trying not to be negative, but I'm just telling you, this is a recipe for 2-4 or 2-5, something along those lines. I'm telling you,
that's a tough start.
Not good.
You're at Dallas. You're at Kansas City. That's a Monday night game. You got Philly at home. Tampa, again, they won the division last year. And then, of course, again, the emotional game against Denver on Thursday Night Football. Wow. What a start.
Jerry, I hear that you want to beat Dallas in week 2. Who doesn't? What Saints fan wouldn't want to be? Now, this is pie. Jerry, I don't know if Buddy D reincarnated himself or something and you're riding on the magic carpet. Upset special, Kansas City on the road on Monday Night Football. I mean, Morgan, I hate to say, it's going to be a rough season. I mean, I'm not ready to say that yet because we don't even know the whole schedule. So I'm not going to go. But I said last week with Sean Fazan, I said if they had an easier schedule early, I thought that they could surprise people, win as many as 10 games because of what we talked about, the cohesiveness. But if they had a tough schedule early, their over-under in Vegas is 7.5 wins. I don't know how you get. I mean, if you start off 2-5, you're not going to win 70. You're not going to win 8 games.
Very difficult, and that's a tough schedule to start off with. Carolina again, maybe a little bit of reprieve there, but from then on, it's murderer's row right now.
But whenever you're talking about Eric, whenever you're talking about a must-win in week 1,
right?
Because I mean, you can spin things whatever way you want if you're the Saints or coach and laugh if somebody asks that question, because most coaches would laugh if you asked that question, but it's no laughing matter. There's no question now. If this is really the schedule, then home against Carolina is 100% a must win.
Got to win it. You got to win coming out because, again, you got a very, very tough. You're going to Dallas. Philly's not going to be easy at home. And I'm interested to see who's going to be in week 4 because, again, that next stretch of at Kansas City, Tampa at home, and then, like I said, an emotional game against Denver. That's rough.
It is rough. Again, going to Green Bay at the end. So let's go back to the others. Bye week is week 12. Okay, so that's good. I'd rather week 12 than early. So week 12 isn't great, but you're running through the gauntlet first. So week 12 is the bye week. I'll put it on the schedule in just a minute. But let's look and see what's left. And you're talking about home game possibilities now. So it could be Cleveland. It could be Atlanta.
Vegas.
It could be Vegas. That would be the ideal one, right? Or maybe Washington,
right?
Or the Rams. So those are your possibilities right now for where that is.
Well, I agree with you. If you could get Washington there, that would be a little bit of I wouldn't call it a reprieve, but maybe a little on paper now. Maybe with a new quarterback, maybe a little bit easier move for the Saints in between Philadelphia and Kansas City. Wow. I didn't think the schedule makers are going to do the Saints any favors. Okay, but again,
why would they?
This is pretty rough. This is pretty rough to start off with. And then
I'm surprised
you're ending with cold weather games. The one thing you didn't want to do.
I'm surprised I haven't got any Goodell hates the Saints comments yet.
Yeah.
Doesn't he? Goodell, I think he likes coming to New Orleans. That's just my opinion, but I understand why people would think that. Man, it is all right. You know what? Let's move on for a minute because before I let you go, and we're going to come back to the schedule in a little bit. I do want to talk about your opinions on the hype train of Spencer Rattler. Okay, Raiders Saints week 17. So the Saints will play Vegas in week 17. So they will not play Las Vegas in week number 2 or week number 4.
All over, huh?
He is a man. That's why he is all over. I want to get your thoughts there. I came on your show last week and you asked me what I thought about Spencer Rattler, and I've said it on this show. I thought it was a wasted pick for the Saints. Whatever. I think, there are some pie in the sky fans out there who think that Spencer Rattler is going to come in and replace Derek Carr. You're out of your box. Derek Carr's not going anywhere for at least the next 2 years. Could he be the heir apparent after that? Maybe. But I just go through and I bring up this fact again. It's a fact. It's not a stat. It's not whatever. That's not this case. He's so different. There's so much upside. I hate the word upside. Everybody has upside. But how many starting quarterbacks in the NFL today were drafted in the 5th round or later? The answer is 1, Brock Purdy. So why is Spencer Rattler any different than 31 quarterbacks in the NFL?
Everybody's looking for the next Tom Brady. right? Everybody's looking for that late round pick that comes in and emerges as, again, a great quarterback. I don't know who Spencer Rattler is going to be. I'm a little surprised that they picked Spencer Rattler in the 5th round because
I am too.
Look, they traded up to get Hainer last year, okay?
Right.
And supposedly he was a guy that was on fire during training camp last year, and again was the heir apparent. You go out and you get Peterman, you get Mound. Mound again was cut. You bring him back in again as a tryout player, and again there are some that believe that that it will be Hainer and Rattler as the backups. How do you go into a season without a legitimate backup with NFL experience?
Right.
I don't buy into. I don't buy rookie minicamp. 11 for 12. To me, that rookie minicamp is rookie minicamp. I think people look too much into those minicamp OTAs, etc. We'll see how things happen. We'll see what happens when again they get into training camp and they're practicing against the 49ers, right? That's when we'll really kind of see where they're at in terms of again a team. But look, we'll see again how it works out with him. I would have gone for, again, an offensive lineman, maybe a defensive lineman in the 5th round, which is what they needed, maybe a safety. They claimed that he was so high on their board, they couldn't walk away from him.
Which I understand. I will say this.
Me too. But you made the investment in Hainer last year with 2 picks.
Correct.
So, again, why come right back and get a quarterback in the next in
they keep
the 5th
doing
round of the next year?
They keep drafting quarterbacks later on. It's like you're just wasting picks. Morgan says she's glad she's not the only one on the fence about Rattler. Rocky says Peterman will be the number. I've been saying that. I still think, I know people don't want to hear that. It's unpopular, but I think Nathan Peterman's going to be the number 2. He says Rattler will be the number 3. I think Hainer is the number 3, and I'm going to tell you why.
I think
Rattler goes to the practice squad. Exactly.
And that'll squash all of this. The second coming here. Look, I hope he can emerge as the next Tom Brady. But I don't see the Saints going into a season with Derek Carr and having 2 inexperienced quarterbacks back.
I don't either. Not at all.
That's season suicide.
It just doesn't make sense. I mean,
No.
But again, I will say this, and we touched on it. If that is your board, and Sean Fazan was talking about this Friday, he had a lot of great points, by the way. It was. I said the other day that last Wednesday was the most watched show of the year. Well, not only did Friday's show surpass it, but it surpassed it by a lot. So I don't know what made people want to watch Friday so bad, but Friday and Monday both. And
Sean's a star. Come on, Sean's a star.
Well, he was Monday. There's no question. But I mean Friday. But one thing that he said, and I do agree with, and I understand, even if I don't like the pick, is if this team had Spencer Rattler on their board somewhere, maybe around 50th or 60th,
right?
And you get to 150 and he's still there, then you almost can't pass him up. And that, at least that I understand.
Well, I will say this. One thing that is different from this year to maybe previous years, the fact they brought in Randy Mueller,
right,
as a consultant, was the former Raider general manager, was also a consultant. So he had a lot of other voices in the room rather than just Dennis Allen, Mickey Loomis et al. So maybe they saw something. Okay,
right.
Look, he was an incredible quarterback coming out of high school. Everybody thought he was going to be the next Heisman Trophy winner at Oklahoma. That didn't work out when Caleb Williams got there. He wasn't a bad quarterback in the SEC. But again, the question is, again, can he assimilate to the NFL? That's going to take some time for any quarterback. And again, if the Saints had him ranked there and they felt they had to go for him, fine. My opinion is you needed to beef up the trenches, and every pick that you could pick with an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman was going to be a plus for this team.
Jerry says Peterman will not be number 2. I don't know how you can. He's not making the team. Why? Why is he not making the team? I mean, I don't, Jerry, I love you. You're always with us. You're one of our top 5 fans that watch the show on a regular basis. I don't know how anyone can say he's not making. They didn't bring in a veteran quarterback just for blanks and giggles.
And then a veteran quarterback that has experience in the system. That's the other part of this. So then again, And you cannot go into the season without an experienced backup.
No, I completely agree with that. Eric, tell the people again here about what's going on and about what's going on at 106.1 The Ticket. Love what you guys are doing over there, and I know people are paying attention.
Yeah, check us out. Again, Fox Sports Radio through most of the day. I'm on 4 to 6 weekdays. Ken Trahan is on 6 to 7 with All Access. Jude Young as well. Of course, we got the Three Tailgaters on Saturday from 10 to noon with Ed Daniels and also Ken Trahan, the longest running sports radio show in the city. If you want to check that out every Saturday. And then of course, again, my TV show, Inside New Orleans Sports on WLE TV. That's Thursday and Friday. Also on Pelican Sports Television on Thursday and Friday as well. That's statewide.
As always, Eric, thank you for not only being a part of this show and coming on and being a guest, but thank you for inviting me to come on your show. I always enjoy it. I always appreciate it. And being a part of the round table of New Orleans media clowns.
Now, Jim, I think you're one of the best we have. And believe me, you'll always have an invitation on my shows. Thank
you, Eric. We'll talk to you soon.
Y'all take care. Thank you.
Eric Asher here on the Dattitude podcast this morning, brought to you by Evangeline Securities. As we told you earlier, if you're just joining the show, we also have a comment coming up. A-Town, I'm going to get to your comment in just a minute. So you see the schedule on the screen. Before we get to the extra point and get to A-Town's question on the schedule, I want to continue my story about my friends at Evangeline Securities. Give me 1 sec. Don't go anywhere. I want you to hear this. We told you early in the show about how Nick Braden and Ron Hemelt came back home after many years of business school in New York. They didn't come back because they hated the Big Apple. They didn't even come back because they got tired of watching the Giants and Jets stink up the joint, or because they missed the Saints, although that probably didn't hurt when they were contemplating a move back home. No, they have stressed to me. I'm telling you, we sat down in meetings. They stressed to me. They came back, and they want people to know, because there were very few businesses in South Louisiana that do what they do, helping those with small and mid-sized business owners figure out how much their company is worth and if it's time to sell. With offices on Poydras Street, you know where that is, and in Lafayette, the people at Evangeline Securities will sit down with you and go through your company and run a no-cost-to-you detailed breakdown. And as we've told you, it won't cost you a dime until you decide you're ready to sell. Then they will run a free, extensive auction process among hand-selected investors from around the world to find the best potential buyer. They will maximize the return process for you and your family, which hopefully will give you the security you need to either move on and do something else with your life, go to the beach, maybe you'll go to New York, wherever they lived. I don't know. You'll probably have enough money to do it. Maybe you just want to retire. Who knows? Whatever the reason, Evangeline Securities can help you make that decision you've been thinking about for quite a while now. They've also told me that if you decide to sell and move to Charlotte, Tampa, or God forbid, Atlanta, they will still give you the same great advice. Check them out at www.evangelinesecurities.com. Okay, I am not going to go straight to the extra point like I normally do, because there's still a little bit more to talk about the schedule. You see it. If you're listening to the pod after the fact, and the schedule hasn't come out yet, we know more than half of the Saints schedule, according to our friend on X, who has been outstanding. And let me tell you real quick, at Nerding on NFL. So check him out at Nerding on NFL. I want to give him credit because again, it's not just this year. I wouldn't use him as a source if he hadn't been good in the past. And we used him on Bayou Bets before, and he's dead on. I think he's missed like 1 or 2 the past 2 years. So that's how good he's been. So check him out. What we know so far: Week 1, home for Carolina, at Dallas, Philadelphia in Week 3. We don't know who they'll play at home in Week 4, but that is going to be, well, it could be a road game. So that's not out of the question that Week 4. It could be a road game. It could be a home game. We don't know. In fact, it probably is a road game now that we look at it. At Kansas City, Week 5 on Monday Night Football. So we told you we thought they would have a Monday game and a Thursday game and probably one of the primetime game. There you go. At Kansas City on Monday Night Football. That's not on Monday Night Football because of the Saints. Saints will be probably an 8 to 9 point underdog in that game. Jerry thinks that's the upset of the year. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Tampa Bay at home, Denver on Thursday Night Football with motivated as any other coach in the NFL, Sean Payton. How about that start? Then we got a couple of holes to fill. We know the bye week is in week 12. At the Giants in week 14, cold as hell. As Foreigner used to say, it's as cold as ice. Colder than the Giants in week 14. How about Lambeau Field in week 16? Las Vegas in week 17 at home at Tampa Bay. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Gabe tells me, there you go. Green Bay, because it's not cold enough during the day. Green Bay, week 16 is Monday Night Football. Why the hell would they want to put the Saints on in week 16 and on Monday Night Football? I don't know. A-Town, thank you for being a part of the show. You've been on with us before. Your question with this schedule, it's not a question. Or maybe it is. I feel that Dennis Allen will be let go before the bye week. I don't see that. I've said before, I don't think the Saints are going to be bad enough for it to be a complete dumpster fire. I just don't. If the offensive line just falls apart and goes to shambles, or if Derek Carr gets hurt, I mean, maybe. The Saints don't have an MO to fire coaches midseason. I'm trying to think. Jim Mora quit in the middle of a season back in 96. The last coach that I remember, in fact, I don't think this was firing either. I think it was a quit. Bum Phillips in 1985, I think quit. I don't remember whether he was fired or he quit, but one way or the other, he was gone. And that was the first year that Tom Benson owned the team. I don't think he was fired. I think he quit. And then Wade Phillips took over for the last 4 weeks of the season. So before that, those are the only two coaches that have been let go or left in midseason. Before that, you got to go back to John Meekum days, and I don't even count that because he fired coaches on a whim. So that's a whole different story. So it's not in the Saints' MO. I mean, I think the Saints would have to have just a disaster of a start. And I'm not, Brian says without knowing the week 4, he's saying they start 2-5. That's not enough to fire Dennis Allen. Not even close. Dennis Allen would not get fired if they start 2-5. Just not going to happen. So we'll be interested to find out as we go along. You can keep following Nerding on NFL if you're interested in getting schedule breakouts. Another one. Here we go. Breaking. Week 15. The Saints will be home to face Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. So there's another one that won't be in week 4. That's another manageable game that won't be in week 4. It's tough. I'm telling you, this is the absolute, other than Carolina in week 1, it is the absolute opposite of what we've been talking about this team needed for this year for a schedule. This is brutal. At Dallas, you can joke about Dallas all you want. Dallas is a damn good football team. They've been 12-5 for 2 years in a row. We know how good Philadelphia is. They won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. The defending champs on the road in week 5. So you're talking about it in Tampa Bay, who won the division. 4 out of 5 weeks. You've got a division winner that won your division last year. You go into the 2-time Super Bowl champion. You got a team that went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and you got a team that's been 12-5 2 years in a row and won the division, the NFC East last year. Who are they going to put in week 4? I mean, I'm trying to think of the toughest opponent possible in week 4. I don't know. What's the Chargers? I mean, would you want to? That would be brutal too. Of all the times to play the Chargers, that would be terrible. But I could see it happening. Not a lot of road games left that are available. At Atlanta, would that be easier? Doubt it. You're not going to play Carolina in that early in the season, that short of a time frame. I don't think. So I think you're looking at Atlanta or at the Chargers, the most likely opponents for that week 4. That's brutal. We'll talk about it more tomorrow morning. Rod Walker's going to be on it, so we will know the official schedule by then, and we will go through it all. I promise you. Let's get to the extra point, though. It is getting close to time to sign off. And for today's extra point, we look at a Supreme Court ruling that struck down a federal law that previously prohibited sports gambling. That ruling changed the world of sports for just about everyone in the United States of America. Whether you've waged thousands of wagered thousands of dollars since that decision 6 years ago today on May 15th, 2018, or if you still don't know what a futures mean and you don't understand how a parlay works, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you've never wagered 1 red cent on sports. Oh, I don't think I know anyone who hasn't bet at least a couple dollars here or there, but that's a whole different story. But if gambling strikes at your very core, still, it has changed the way the sports is shown on TV. Simply the mention of lines of games just a decade or so was taboo by many networks. Now it is embraced. It's embraced because the major sports leagues wisely have opened up to the potential financial gain from sports books. In turn, I argue that it has kept the rising prices of tickets and options to view games a bit lower than maybe they might have been because of the money the leagues are bringing in from these sponsorships. It also obviously makes things more transparent in the world of sports gambling. While some would argue it has made pro and college sports more corrupt, I think just the opposite. If anyone is naive enough to think illegal gambling wasn't going on behind the scenes, including among some players and those associated with these teams, then you also likely believe the Loch Ness Monster might be the next guest on the Dattitude podcast. Hey, Gabe, can we squeeze in the Loch Ness Monster tomorrow? That would make for a hell of a YouTube short. Transparency is the key, and it is clear the leagues are being upfront and in keeping with the integrity of their sports leagues. Now on to the 1/4 of the population of people who gamble on sports regularly. It was clear long before the ruling, and it remains so, that a majority of Americans think gambling on sports should be legal, whether they bet or not. We understand Joe Q bookies still exist. Hey, I know a few of those guys. But a vast majority of today's sports betting is done through legal books, therefore allowing states to benefit as well. Don't get me wrong. I stress throughout my time as sports betting writer from September 2021 through this past February on this podcast and on our old Bayou Bet show that obviously no one should bet more than they can afford to lose. I get that that can be a problem for many. But that problem existed long before gambling on sports became legal and will continue to be one. I also argue with the help of professional sports leagues, assistance to those in need is more readily available. In the end, it is what about the people want. And again, a majority of Americans want sports gambling to be legal, and it has been in a form of entertainment for many since. For some, they simply like seeing the odds of the Saints, Pelicans, LSU, or other teams winning a championship. Some like to know how big a favorite or underdog their beloved team might be for the next game on the schedule. How big of an underdog will the Saints be at Kansas City on Monday Night Football in Week 5? We use it here often on this show, and without the creation of bet.nola.com nearly 3 years ago, there wouldn't be a Dattitude podcast. No wisecracks, by the way. Also, you should check out all the great stuff we have there. Well, side alert, my ADHD kicking up. It helped me win a nice chunk of change on the Kentucky Derby. Shout out to Tom Casale. I digress. If you believe the Saints are going to ride the magic carpet all the way to their second Super Bowl this year, you can head over to DraftKings or FanDuel or Caesars or any other legal sportsbook in Louisiana and place $10 on your psychic vision and win enough to have a king cake party for your entire neighborhood. If you think LSU is going to make the first college football 12-team playoff this year, you can bet on that around even money. And if you think Paul Skeens is going to beat the Cubs on Friday afternoon, sure. Why not? Indeed, the decision of the Supreme Court 6 years ago was the right one and one of the biggest decisions ever to affect the American sports world, and we are certainly happy they did so. All right, before we go off the air here, let's see. Any more breaking? Oh, there we go. So we got another one. Saints-Rams in Week 13. That will be in the Dome. So the Saints will play the Los Angeles Rams after the bye week in the Dome. Jerry, I love your positivity, my friend. 5-2 start for the Saints. A-Town. See, here is the different viewpoints of Saints fans. Jerry said 5-2 start. A-Town saying 4-13 or 5-12 at best. Top 5 draft picked in top 25. Okay. Brian, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but basically disagrees with what I said about my extra point on Monday about Mickey Loomis. Take away the Peyton. You can't take away the Peyton years. He brought Peyton here. He's a bottom tier. You're saying he's a bottom tier GM. You can't take away the Peyton years. You don't think he was a huge part of everything that went on while Sean Payton was here? He brought Sean Payton here. He helped bring Drew Brees here. I mean, I love dissenting comments, but if I think you're wrong, I'm going to tell you you're wrong in the nicest way possible. Or at least the nicest way possible for me. Rocky says the Saints are going to be 3-3 heading into the Denver game. The Saints, I think that's going to be best case scenario, Rocky. Possible. Is it going to happen? I don't know. Again, tomorrow we're going to have a lot more on this. That will be the last, unless Gabe gets one the next minute or two. That is going to be the last one. That is going to wrap it up for this Wednesday. I do want to thank today's guest, Eric Asher. And of course, Gabe Henderson was phenomenal behind the scenes. Phenomenal. And he'll be back here tomorrow behind the scenes as well. We hope you can join us tomorrow, Thursday morning at 11 a.m. If you're watching live, we will have Todd McCune and the Advocate sports columnist Rod Walker on to talk about tonight's schedule release and all the leaks we're getting. They'll be official by tomorrow. And we'll make a few way too early predictions. We want you to come back and make way too early. It's okay. If you think they're going 0-17, we're good. We'll show it on the screen. If you think they're going 17-0 and you don't care about Kansas City on Monday Night Football, you don't care about going to Green Bay on Monday Night Football in the week of Christmas, we don't care. Whatever you think, we're going to show it on the screen. We want your opinion. That is what makes us different. We will show your comments in live time. You know how you do that? Subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page. Click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live. You can comment there on YouTube. You can comment on Facebook. You can comment on X. And you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast, and find a replay of the show on NOLA.com/sports. Whew. Man, that was crazy. That's a crazy show. We enjoyed scouring through the schedule. We will help you dissect it on Thursday morning. Until then, take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.